Sup, freaks? It's your boy Marty here to introduce this rip of TFTC. Thank you for joining us. Give this video a like. Subscribe to the channel. If you catch us on podcast apps, make sure you subscribe there. Give us a rating, a review. Go to tftc.io as well. Become a member of the site. Join the conversation. Truth for the commoner, trying to get you the high signal content in a world gone mad. This rip was brought to you by our good friends at River. River's here to make it as easy as possible for you to buy Bitcoin and then take it into self-custody. Go to river.com/TFTC, set up an account today, and you'll get $5 of Bitcoin after you buy $100 worth of Bitcoin on River. You can dollar cost average into Bitcoin with no fees. If you're just buying one off, River has the best fees in the industry. They back all their Bitcoin reserves 1-to-1 in multi-sig cold storage. They highly recommend that you take self-custody. They just introduced limits. So if you want to set a limit order below or above the current Bitcoin price, River makes that extremely easy as well. They also have real customer support. You can pick up the phone and call them if you have any questions about your experience on River. So go to river.com/TFTC, set up an account today. This rip is also brought to you by our good friends at CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth is here to provide you with a new way to pay for your healthcare. It's not health insurance. Health insurance is notoriously expensive, opaque, impersonal. CrowdHealth is really trying to change that model. You pay a monthly fee. It builds up in an account. If you ever have a health event, you let CrowdHealth know. They go to the doctor. They negotiate the price lower. You pay the first $500 and the rest gets crowdfunded by the CrowdHealth community. They have Bitcoin Lightning payments that they just enabled. So if you want to pay your monthly fee plus your doctor in Bitcoin over the Lightning Network, you can now do that. They've got a roster of doctors that you can access. They're approaching healthcare in the right way. It's a healthy community focused on preventative healthcare and avoiding the big pharma industry as much as possible. So if you're looking for a cheap healthcare solution, you're not happy with your health insurance, maybe it's a bit too expensive, try out CrowdHealth. Me and my family use it. Go to joincrowdhealth.com/TFTC. Sign up today using that, and you'll get $50 off your first month. Joincrowdhealth.com/TFTC. Enjoy this rip.
It's always like the good stuff happens before it actually records.
I think it's the only way podcasts work. You know, you have to record the good stuff before you actually hit record.
There you go.
Just kidding. This is going to be filled with good stuff. Andy, it's been like a year.
A year. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right outside the door here. It's not hard to find you to get you on.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. This is like our prime time. So we think like 60% of our customers are going to come in the November, December, and January months.
This is open enrollment season.
Open enrollment season. Everybody's like, what do I do with healthcare next year? It's like doing taxes in April or October or whatever when you do them. It's like, this sucks. Like, I got to go through healthcare.gov. I got to get my W-2s. I got to turn those in because healthcare.gov wants my W-2s now, which is ridiculous.
Is this relatively new?
It was, I think, since the government started doing subsidies, you actually just have to turn in your paychecks so that they can validate your income.
Your right to get healthcare.
Your right to get healthcare. So, yeah, we're in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it, and things are going well.
Yeah, and like we were just discussing the good things before we record. I mean, there's two things we want to cover predominantly, or I want to cover. You guys have integrated Lightning, really pushing forward Bitcoin as a medium of exchange to pay for your healthcare and support healthcare providers on the back end. And then number two, what I'm really curious, maybe where we could start, is has the economic situation deteriorated to a point where healthcare costs are beginning to enter the economic calculation people are taking into consideration on a month-to-month basis? And with that in mind, like, it seems to me, I've experienced this personally with me and my family using CrowdHealth for over a year now, year and a half. It's much cheaper, has been. And it's like the economic decision for healthcare that makes the most sense for us. Even though we probably could pay for more expensive healthcare, it's just a better experience and cheaper overall.
Yeah. I mean, I think it has. My board member, interestingly, asked me this was either last board meeting or the one before. It's like, do you guys do better during the up times or the down times? And for a variety of reasons, the down times. I mean, we're getting a ton of people who've been laid off by all these companies that have a decision to make. They can go in Cobra, which is ridiculously expensive. In essence, what Cobra is you take both your responsibility and the employer's responsibility, and you have to pay them both now. So it doubles or maybe triples. You know, you can go uninsured, you can do CrowdHealth, or you can do something else. And so we're getting a lot of people coming off of Cobra. So that's one, you know, it's good for us in that way. And then, you know, two, it's just easier to operate, you know, in terms of hiring people and getting people on board and things like that when, you know, Facebook's not paying a developer $500,000 anymore, you know? So it's easier actually to operate within this environment. And we have a lot more people who are looking for alternatives. I mean, with that said, I mean, one of those interesting things about CrowdHealth is, and I posted this on Twitter the other day, people come because it's low price, but it's actually, I think, bigger. Like, you're now a part of a community on a mission. Mm-hmm. You know, like we are in the same tribe. I mean, we literally sit next to each other, you know, and Parker sits in between us, and he's a CrowdHealth member, you know, and Jimmy Song was in here yesterday doing some, and he's a CrowdHealth member. And so we're actually like a part of this little community of CrowdHealth members that are helping each other out with healthcare expenses. And that's step one. Step two is like, can we take now this little group of people, we'll be at like 6,000 by the end of the month. Decent chunk of people who can then take Bitcoin and incorporate it into this and now see what we all love being used more widely in the economy. I mean, and that's what I'm fired up about. So, I mean, we talked about this last year, but I wanted to start CrowdHealth to first take down healthcare. Mm-hmm. I think I said burn down healthcare. ATF called me. And then it's like, once we get like some critical mass, then we can use that group to expand the use of Bitcoin, you know. And I think there's probably one more step into our food system of saying, like, how do we actually impact, you know, the crap that we're putting in our bodies and make some incentives to allow people to eat better, right? And those are the three steps that I want to go down. We're on step 2, but we're super excited about it.
Yeah. And approaching 6,000 members, that's a way bigger community than this time last year when we first recorded. And
yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I think it was maybe a couple thousand.
Yeah, I think it might be 3 or 4x.
Yeah, 3 or 4x what we were last year. That's about right. We're about 3x this year versus last.
And so what of some of the growing pains or growing pleasures that you've experienced over the last 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, the growing pleasures are way easier, right, to talk about. It's working. You know, anytime you have a startup,
I've seen it.
There's a number of things that you're like, this could blow this thing up, you know? And it's like, my deal as a CEO is to reduce the risk of any one of those things blowing up. Like, the big one is, are the bills going to actually get paid, right? Like, if I ask Marty to help me with my bills, Marty going to say yes, or is he going to say no? And it's like 98% of the people say yes. Like, that's worked, and that's been for now 2 years. So it works. The bills are getting paid. Then the question is like, can we actually get bills for a significantly lower cost than health insurance plans? And the answer to that has been yes. So we're at about somewhere between 140 and 150% of Medicare. So whatever Medicare pays, we pay about 40% more. Health plans pay 250 to 300% more. So you can do that math. We're like half of what health plans pay, which is
significantly,
significant. I shared the story again on Twitter, but my father-in-law had a gallbladder surgery last week or 2 weeks ago, and I forget exactly what the number was, but it was like $45,000 for a gallbladder surgery, and that was in Austin. And we had a member that got one last week at like $5,000.
Yeah, 1/8 the price.
1/8 the price. 1/9 or whatever it was. And they were in Arkansas. So, I mean, it's one state away. So there's probably a little bit of a thing, but it's not 90% different. I mean, or whatever, 500% different, you know, in Arkansas than it is in Austin. But it just proves that, like, we have been able to really get people to awesome docs at a reasonable price.
Well, that gets to another question, like the awesome docs. Like, obviously, users like myself in the community have really seen the value of the CrowdHealth model. Are you seeing more doctors become aware of what you guys are doing, and not only that, but excited about it?
They're more excited about it than our members are.
Really?
Yeah. They're like, man, please, will you send people our way? And we don't have any direct relationships with docs because we don't want to make like a network. But we have docs reaching out to us on, Twitter and all kinds of places every day, being like, please, will you send people my way? So it's been amazing to see that, because they want to release themselves from health insurance the same way you and I want to release ourselves from the fiat world, right? Like health insurance is their fiat world.
Yeah.
Right. And so they were like, please, like anything you can do, because, the thing that happens is United Healthcare, for example, is a lot of these guys, like 40, 50, maybe even 60% of their revenue. So if you think of a business that has one customer for 60% of their revenue, that's not good.
Yeah.
They can come in and really jam you.
That's concentration risk.
That's concentration risk is what they call it in MBA school.
Yes.
And so United will come in, and allegedly they've done this, and say like, you have to take 20% cuts or we're out. You can't beat our network. And I was like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? You have to sell to the hospitals, what you have to do. Mm-hmm. And then the hospitals get huge and consolidate and take those rates and they jack them up, because now it's a duopoly in Austin with St. David's and Ascension against basically a duopoly. It's an oligopoly, but maybe a duopoly, oligopoly in the health insurance space. So just prices go up. Like it's just basic economics.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's insane. You have those concentrating market forces. Prices are going up. Inflation's running rampant. You mentioned mass layoffs across many different sectors, and healthcare is something that is one of the most important expenses that people deal with. And so having this option, and then the CrowdHealth team sort of advocating on behalf of the patient at the end of the day is massive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about like running a business and you have not only concentration risk with a customer, but the customer that absolutely hates you. Right? Like that sucks.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like one of the best things, kind of going back to your original question, like the things we've learned is like, it's fun, like with our customers, because our members are like, we want to take down this system. Like help us take down the system.
Well,
it's pretty cool.
I wanted to mention it earlier, but as you were describing that, the parallels to the beef initiative and going out and shaking your rancher's hand are impossible to ignore. Like it's just this grassroots movement through initiatives like the beef initiative and CrowdHealth to go fix the problems that you view as systemically serious in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's totally right. There's a flywheel effect to that too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, it's this month will probably be like 50% of our customers come from our existing customers. Mm-hmm. So we do some advertising on podcasts, including yours.
Had somebody email me over the weekend.
Yeah.
They're going to move over.
Yeah. And so it's, we give our members $250 if you refer somebody, or 1 million sats, which is way more than $250 now. We originally were like, hey, it'll be $250 or 1 million sats, when 1 million sats was $250. And now it's way more than $250.
It's like $350.
And now we're like, hey, you know what? Bitcoin went up, but we're still giving you 1 million sats. Like that's just how we are.
Hell
right?
Yeah.
Because we bought the sats way back then. So you get the upside. Congrats. So if anybody's listening to that and is a CrowdHealth member and they have a buddy or a friend who's looking for healthcare, 1 million sats. We've got, lots of sats stacked up, ready to give away.
Hell yeah. Open enrollment season. Go tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
And how has the incumbent health insurance industry changed, if at all, over the last year? Any big news items or?
I mean, nothing significant. Nothing significant. I mean, the thing that's happening right now is, clearly the government owns the poor. And I use that word owns specifically, like on purpose, right? Like they have to go to the government now for pretty much everything, including their health insurance. The government owns the old, 65 and above. And now what they've done is for the healthcare.gov plans, they've now taken, another middle chunk and say, we're going to totally subsidize you, but we're going to just fund the private insurance companies to do that. So in essence, they're trying to go from old to young and from poor to rich, and they're going to meet somewhere in the middle. And ultimately going to, it's a fight to a single payer. I mean, this is ultimately, unfortunately, where I think we'll end up in the next decade if we don't do something serious. Because what's happening is what we're seeing is these employers are getting another massive increase this year. And these are big employers like General Electric and, JP Morgan and all these people, right? And they're going to these to the legislators and they're saying, man, look, we can't compete with China because we have to own the healthcare costs, and so it's just impossible to compete. And so government, what you should do is you should take over healthcare, right? This is what's happening from these big organizations, And so then the legislators are saying, look, we can't compete. We're losing jobs. Like they're going to make this narrative around how this is actually good for U.S. business.
Are they saying people are going to go work in China because of the healthcare, or?
No, well, we're just saying we're losing competitiveness with China in terms of our businesses being able to compete with them globally because we're responsible. Here, they're responsible for the healthcare costs, whereas in China, the government pays for all the healthcare costs.
So it's the opportunity cost of having to pay for employee healthcare.
Expense structure, in essence, expense structure. Or think about Europe. Europe pays, pretty much everywhere in Europe, with some exceptions. The government pays for all of their. So if you have a company in the United States where the company in the United States has to pay for the health insurance, which for a single person, $7,000 a year. For a family, it's 21 or something like that, $1,000 a year. And the company in Europe doesn't have to pay for the healthcare expenses. The company in Europe has a leg up on the United States company because the cost structure is just significantly different.
Completely different.
And so that's what they're saying is we can't compete anymore globally because of this healthcare crisis. And that's ultimately, I think, going to lead to the government saying, okay, we'll take it. We're doing it because the business has told us to. That's ultimately where this is going.
Yeah. And it's funny, it's striking at branches instead of solving the root of the problem. It's like, do these companies not realize what they're saying? There's a healthcare crisis. Like, what is driving that healthcare crisis?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, why are your health expenses being driven through the roof and making it so that you're less competitive with the global marketplace?
Yeah. Well, then they're not even looking at it. They're looking at it just in terms of the line item being really, really big. But most of these companies, look, if you're in, a software business, a SaaS business that has nothing to do with healthcare, and you see this line item of healthcare, you're kind of like, I don't know what to do with this, right? Like I'm good at SaaS. I'm good at, writing code. Like healthcare is not in my wheelhouse. So I'm going to let somebody else do it. And then they don't even look at it. And so they end up, just basically fueling this crazy insurance-driven healthcare system where, as we've talked on the last couple of times I've been on here, is it fuels price increases because that's all the incentives. It's going to increase prices.
Yeah. Not only increase prices, but due to the pricing power that these insurance companies have and these hospital systems have, we've talked about this too, like the incentives of actually providing good care are significantly diminished. And that's one of the favorite aspects of CrowdHealth in my mind, in supplementing CrowdHealth with direct personal care.
Yeah, TPC, yeah.
Is that I do think this is going to be a trend. I just see it in my own life. It's like we're interacting for pediatricians with that duopoly you mentioned here in Austin, and I believe we used ARC, and it was just a terrible experience and very impersonal. No room for negotiation, like trying to see our perspective, and we went once. We're like, we're never going again. We found Veronica.
Oh yeah, great.
And
she's great.
She's awesome. But it's funny. My wife has said it multiple times, like using ultra personal healthcare, going to Veronica is probably her favorite aspect of moving to Austin.
That's awesome.
It's healthcare like she's never experienced in her whole life.
Yeah. So what others out there understand what we're talking about is, in essence, what's happened is a lot of these doctors have said, I'm getting out of this system. I'm not doing it anymore. So I'm going to have a direct relationship with my patients. And so the patients pay Veronica, in this case, with ultra personal healthcare, directly on a month-to-month basis. And what is it, like $100 a month per person or something like that, or
adults,
75,
and then I think it's $150 adults, $50 for children.
Yeah. So you have a direct relationship with the doctor. You're paying the doctor. I've said this multiple times, but it's like you work for whoever pays you, right? And right now in our system, the doc works for the insurance companies. They don't work for you, right? And in your situation, you're paying Veronica directly. In all CrowdHealth situation, CrowdHealth members are paying their doctor directly. The doctor gets to be work for you again. And once you tell them that, there's a massive change in the way that they act. They're like, okay, great. This is between me and you.
Yeah. It's a conversation.
It's a conversation.
I want to hear your needs, understand your personal healthcare journey, because it's different for everybody. It's not just some form fit solution that the health insurance company or the hospital system gives you. It's actually like a conversation and an ongoing one, which is great.
Yeah. The doctors don't have to ask the insurance company's permission anymore for what they can or cannot do, because it's back between the patient and the doctor, which is the way it should be.
And it's affordable.
Yeah. I mean, you add DPC plus CrowdHealth, which is an awesome combination, is still way less expensive than your typical health insurance plan. And you're getting way better service from my perspective. I mean, you got Veronica, you can call her any time of day or night if you have an issue.
We've texted her at 1 a.m. before on a weekend she answered.
Yeah.
Or somebody with internet network answered almost immediately.
And then for the big stuff, you can lean on CrowdHealth. What you had something with your, it's just PHI, so I don't mean to talk about your kids, eat.
My son got a rock in his ear. He had a rock in his ear.
He got a rock in his ear.
He had to get it removed.
And that was, what, $1,500 or something like that? And so it wasn't huge, but it was bigger, and then you paid for the first $500, and I remember crowdfunding it. And we asked, I don't know what it was, 10 people or something like that for $100, and you got it paid for within not too long of a period of time. Like, so DPC, direct primary care, for the little stuff, CrowdHealth for the big stuff, and you're still paying less than you would, a Cigna plan.
Annually.
Yeah.
And even if it was parity, it's less, but even if it was parity, I'd pay for it because the experience is much better.
And the experience is way better. Yeah.
It's literally, the impersonality of health insurance and the massive corporate healthcare system is so impersonal that I would pay more for the experience I have with CrowdHealth plus DPC. It just pans out that I'm paying less, which is even better.
We had somebody on Instagram today tell us about her surgery, and it was like, I've been in CrowdHealth for two years. I went into surgery, and CrowdHealth called the surgeon the day of to make sure everything was good, ready to go, called the front desk, wanted to make sure when I showed up, everything was taken care of. And the front desk ladies were like, what is this company? Because it's usually the insurance company being like, no, we're not doing this. We're not, like, it's like an enemy of the patient. Whereas we're like making sure everything's good, like making sure you're taken care of, like those types of things. It's just a totally different experience.
Yeah. No, I mean, you get the healthcare advocate, you walk you through the process of what you need to do, getting the bills, submitting them, getting them paid on the back end. And
we're gonna a big thing for 24 is we're gonna make that a little bit more frictionless, which will be cool. In essence, what we're doing is, the way I tell my wife, this is clearly different than your audience, but my wife is not a Bitcoiner. She she wants to make sure that when she pays for something, it can get paid for, and that's about it, right? But the way I explain it to her is like, hey, you have a Venmo account. She gets Venmo, right? Mm-hmm. And what if everybody had Venmo accounts? We as the Schoonover family needed help. Then we'd have a bunch of people sending us money, and then we could pay for that help right out of our Venmo account, or we could, off ramp it to our Bank of America or PNC or whatever bank account, and we could pay for it that way. But in essence, you have your little healthcare wallet, right? And that's what we're doing. You have your little healthcare wallet. You can fill it up if you want to. You can take it down if you want to, but you got a little healthcare wallet there that, you can pay at the point of care in Lightning. You can do that with Veronica because she now accepts Bitcoin, that's ultimately what we want to do, right? Like, everybody should have a wallet and pay directly with Lightning. And if you can't pay with Lightning, then, pay with fiat, and on the back end, we'll kind of reimburse you with, Bitcoin. And so then you can keep that Bitcoin in that wallet and just hold it, or you can pull it down and off ramp it, or send it to, your Unchained account or whatever. That just seems like a way better way of doing this.
And so let's dive into it. Like, how have you guys approached implementing Bitcoin, particularly the Lightning Network?
We've been trying to do something with Bitcoin for a long time. And we, in typical startup fashion, have tried, and some of it has gone well and some of it has not gone well. Hopefully our members, I think they do. They're like, they see the heart behind this of like, man, we really want to incorporate Bitcoin into what we do. I sat with Jimmy Song down at the Capitol Grill a few years ago, and he's like, man, these health insurance companies are holding this big bucket of fiat and it's declining, minute by minute. What if you held that bucket in Bitcoin? And that's got me thinking, like, man, we should just let our members hold kind of any excess funds in Bitcoin and they can do with it whatever they want with it, right? So for an individual, it's $125 a month that we ask for people. We're only spending somewhere between 75 and 100. So what if that other 25 or that 50, you could let people, just stick into Bitcoin and they can save it and they can do with it whatever they want. But it was custodian. And we know all the stuff that's going on right now with custodians. Mm-hmm. A bit of a mess.
Yeah.
The custodian we used, we just, two of our biggest states disappeared. Like, it was just a mess. And we're like, all right, why don't we just let people hold their own money? Like, so, if it's $125, we need 75 for Marty's, rock in your ear. And the remaining 50, you keep it, and then you can put it wherever you want. You buy Bitcoin, you can put it in custody, non-custodial, whatever, wherever you want to put it. Like, that's our second step. And people are like, why can't I save in Bitcoin? And I'm like, no, we're letting you keep your money so you can invest in Bitcoin. But it wasn't as easy. We're like, all right, let's try again. Ultimately where we've landed is saying, if we can put a Bitcoin wallet, a Lightning wallet, in the CrowdHealth app, and then let people fund each other's healthcare expenses through the Lightning wallet, which is way better than the fiat rails for so many reasons. One, your transaction fees go to basically zero. I mean, it's not zero, but it's pretty darn close. Mm-hmm. It's instantaneous, which people don't understand the fiat rails. Like, we don't see this on the customer side, but like, you got to let this stuff settle before you can actually move it. Yeah. And so sometimes it's 3 days, sometimes it's 6 days with ACH, sometimes it's 12 days, depending upon the banks. And so the back end of that is just like craziness. It's a mess. Whereas so Lightning, like, I can get money to you, I can do it right now and you get it instantaneously, right? And so that's the beauty of using the Lightning wallet. So in essence, this is the way it would work, right? You have your $15 rock in your ear, or let's say it's 2,000 and 1,500. You paid the first $500 of it. The 1,500, we would go to all of the Bitcoiners and we say, hey, 15 of you, send Marty $100 worth of Bitcoin via Lightning. I would send you an invoice. You would accept it. You would have money in your Lightning wallet because you've already pre-stocked it. And it's going to go directly to Marty's wallet. And Marty, within minutes now, is going to have the $15 he needs to pay for your son's rock in his ear. Now, if that doctor accepts Lightning, you can pay in Lightning directly from that wallet. And if the doctor doesn't accept Lightning, then you have choice. I can pay in fiat $1,500 and hold that $1,500 in Bitcoin, which you're just transferring fiat assets to Bitcoin assets is what's happening there. Or you can off ramp it and you can use that money then to pay your doctor, right? And ultimately we think the circularity will be 1 or 2% in year one, like Lightning to Lightning to Lightning to Veronica, who's accept Lightning and she holds it in Lightning. But it's like, can we start at 1 or 2% and get to 3 or 4% and get to 10% and get to 15%? Like, that's where we want to see gradual increases. So, online, the Twitter sphere, people are like, oh, there's just nobody to accept it. And I'm like, yeah, we got to have people willing to pay it before people are going to accept it, right? So let's start at 1 or 2% and then move our way up. And I think if we can just take a small chunk of the healthcare space, $4.3 trillion, like just a small, tiny chunk.
10 bips.
10 bips, right? You could say, hey, Bitcoin does have actual use as a medium of exchange. Mm-hmm. And we're doing it in healthcare. Like, this is the biggest industry on the planet. That's my vision, and so maybe I'm too optimistic or I'm idealistic, but I was like, man, I think somebody's got to go out there and say, we've got to at least start this. And then we're going to have somebody full-time on CrowdHealth who are going to all these doctors and trying to orange pill them to say, hey, you can accept Bitcoin. It's really easy. And what is the benefit of that? One is, I hope we can convince you the fiat sucks, right? But two is, you're going to Veronica, I'm assuming partly because, she's a Bitcoin-minded, person, a sovereignty-focused person. And we can get people to you, doctor, if you'll accept Bitcoin.
Yeah.
if we had a Bitcoin doctor in Austin, which Veronica's one, like I guarantee you, we can get more people there. Like, because I want to go to a Bitcoin doctor because they're not fiat, right? They're not like pharma first, take a med, be done, right? They're actually being like thoughtful and seek truth as opposed to just doing whatever the medical industrial complex wants you. So that's the big vision. I mean, we'll see if it works at startup stuff, right? But that's the big vision for what we want to do here.
No, I think it's totally achievable. I mean, and going back to Veronica, like my wife interacts with the Ultra Personal Healthcare app. So when she sent me the message where they're like, we're accepting Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Now. And they were like using Zaprite. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then you read the blog post that she put out, which was like, hey, not only do we believe in your sovereignty when it comes to healthcare, we believe in your sovereignty when it comes to money too. And that's why we're going to accept Bitcoin. If you want to pay us in that, and that's what this is paid 2 months of invoices. I think she launched like 2 months ago. So we've paid 2 invoices over Zaprite. And it's just like, yeah, it's awesome. And as a Bitcoiner, like if I didn't want to reach into my stack, I can easily buy and send or use something like Strike to just pull from my US dollar bank account and send Bitcoin directly to her address, whether it's over Lightning or on-chain. And I think that's what it's going to take is just one man at a time, one woman at a time. In the case of Veronica, stepping up and saying, I'll accept it. And then I'm more than happy to pay her, prefer to pay her in Bitcoin.
Right.
Because I know she's really helping my family. And if she wants to accept Bitcoin and enable that, like more than happy to pay in Bitcoin.
I think it's important. Like, I'm not asking you to pull from your stack. Like, I'm asking you to say, hey, one line item of my budget was being paid in fiat. Mm-hmm. I'm now going to convert that to being paid in Bitcoin. And if more people do that, I think we can get to a critical mass of most doctors, most hospitals, being willing to accept Bitcoin. I mean, I think that's be an incredible step for Bitcoin. And nobody can say out there, none of the pundits can say, if we were able to do that, oh, you can't use Bitcoin anywhere. Like it's, that's just will be BS if we can actually accomplish that.
Yeah, and you see, I know last week there was a dentist in Denver.
Yeah.
He's using Zaprite now to accept Bitcoin. So it's definitely happening. There are those doctors out there. I know them. Obviously, Veronica's one of them, but there's many others that I've talked to that are Bitcoiners. That's actually, I mean, it makes sense. Doctors are very smart people. You think they'd come to understand Bitcoin quicker.
The thing that was so interesting in that, I don't know if you really looked at that tweet. That doctor did that tweet, and I think he had at the time he did the tweet, 120 followers or something like that. That tweet, I think, got 150,000 people to see it. Mm-hmm. Like, you're now accepting Bitcoin, you got 150,000 people now see that this dentist in Denver is accepting Bitcoin. I guarantee it would be an awesome case study to go back to him and say, did you get any Bitcoiners? Like, I bet you, his business is gonna go really, really well because he accepts Bitcoin. And that's the only way I think we have to do this. I think going to doctors and be like, you should accept Bitcoin just because it's a cool thing to do. I don't think that works. I think we have to go to them and say, if you accept Bitcoin, they will come.
Yes.
And so it's like, if we get Bitcoiners to say, I'm going to go to Bitcoin doctors if there is one, then man, again, you create demand for a good, and that's beautiful capitalism. Demand for a good, you want to go to that doctor or that dentist or whoever. That's how I think we win.
Agreed. And I know myself, I'm an archetype of many other Bitcoiners out there. I want to go support doctors that accept Bitcoin. And likely if they're in Bitcoin this early, they're probably philosophically aligned with the problems that enter one's life when they deal with centralized institutions. Obviously, healthcare is majorly centralized. If they're accepting Bitcoin, they probably understand the importance of decentralization and when it comes to healthcare. And like we said, the 2 episodes we recorded, maybe 3 even, last year, the year before, it's got to be grassroots. It's got to be one at a time. You got to go support the people. Like you said, Bitcoiners want this to happen, and obviously hodling is a use case. But I do agree. You said pre-recording, we need to break out of that, and I think spend and replace, or just simply use something like Strike to convert what was already a monthly line item. They were paying in fiat anyway, convert it to Bitcoin.
Totally.
Just grow and empower the people that are treating you.
Yeah. Well, and I think, dentists are one, doctors are another. Like, one of the problems with our system is we are incentivized to maximize revenue regardless of how it impacts the patient, right? Dentists, for some reason, when we started talking about dentists, it came to my mind, like the last time I was at a dentist, at the end, they're like trying to upsell you on everything. Like, do you want fluoride? And do you want da-da-da? And it looks like your teeth are a little out of line. Do you want a $5,000 Invisalign? Maybe I'm naive, but I just don't think Bitcoin doctors will do that. Like, I just don't think they're going to like fiat you to death. Like maybe I'm naive, and maybe the doctors I've met thus far who are Bitcoin doctors, like they're like, no, I want to provide you a service. It's value for value. Like I want to provide you a service that creates value. I want you to pay me, and I don't need to make all my money on all of the upcharges because I'm providing you a great service, and you're providing me money, in the form of Bitcoin to provide me with a living that I need to there's that relationship there without an insurance company in the middle.
Yeah.
So you don't need to upcharge you all these 22 different things that you don't really need, So I just think you get better. It's a lower price. It's better care. And like, that to me is a winner.
I can't stress enough that it is better care, which is, again, the most refreshing thing. Like I never thought that finding a good doctor would be the highlight of our move to Texas for my wife.
But that's awesome.
It's really helped her changed her perspective on healthcare more generally, like understanding that this DPC model exists in the first place. She's like, why haven't we been doing this our whole lives? It's and so then on the doctor side, like, so are all the Bitcoiner doctors coming to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're building a database. So we're building this, nationwide database of docs who said they either do or will accept Bitcoin. So the fun thing is we had a lot of doctors say, look, if you can send me patients, I will accept Bitcoin. And it's like, Dr. BTC or something is their, screen name. So I know it's not like just because. It's like, no, like I will accept Bitcoin if you send doctors or if you send patients my way. So I think you're going to see Bitcoin doctors who want to accept Bitcoin, which I think is awesome. But I think, if we're trying to, be missionaries here in some way, like what if doctors who weren't Bitcoin doctors are orange pilled because they see the demand driver of Bitcoin? They're introduced to Bitcoin. They understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin and how it's so much better than fiat. Like, I think this is a way to orange pill the healthcare space too. So there's so many just kind of good components of this that it feels right. It's fun to be able to kind of be the first to on the back end, help people pay in Bitcoin. So it's fun. It's been a fun journey.
Have there been any skeptical doctors? Like, what is this? What is CrowdHealth number one? What is Bitcoin number two? That have been like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the big challenge with this, right, is like CrowdHealth is so different than health insurance already. And people are kind of like, what, huh? And then I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing Bitcoin too. And they're like, okay, hold on a second. Our brains can only process so much, and just as a defense mechanism, anything we can't easily understand, we just say, this is dumb, right? And so you see a lot of people doing that. And so we've had to be very careful of not trying to double pill people at the same time. It's like, no, we want to get you on CrowdHealth first so you understand it. And then let's see if I can transition you to the Bitcoin crowd. So we actually had to, bifurcate our Twitter handle. One is like CrowdHealth BTC, which is going to be all of our Bitcoin stuff, and one's just generally CrowdHealth, because I'm trying to not double whammy people, into this. Our number one kind of barrier to growing is people thinking that this is such a crazy model, right? But that's the number one concern for most totally disruptive, categories. And so I just don't want to double.
People don't believe me when I explain CrowdHealth. They're like, what's the catch? What's the catch?
Scam.
What's the catch, Andy?
The catch is we're getting 50% better rates than health plans. I mean, that's crazy for bills greater than $1,000. And so all the big bills, we're getting incredible rates for our members. And so even if we're just like 50% better, that's it right there. And then we have a self-selected group of people like me and you who are, in our 30s and our 40s. We're healthy. We take care of ourselves. What we put in our body is really important to us. We work out. We take care and love our families well. Like those people just have lower medical costs, right? And so it's a self-selected group of people to come together to do that. So, and that's a multiplicative effect, right, on costs. So that's the reason. It's very easy math, actually.
Yeah. No, it's funny now when you mention like people, you don't want to double whammy people, like even like explaining the model to the doctors when we go to the doctors and they're like, oh, what's your health insurance? Like, oh, we don't have health insurance. You do like direct pay via this CrowdHealth crowdfunding model. And
they're like, what?
They start whispering because direct pay is usually looked down upon. And one time they asked my wife, like, what's your what's the income of your household? And she like responded, and they're like, oh, like, why are you doing direct pay?
This?
Why don't you have health insurance? It's funny.
Everybody been psyoped to think that like health insurance is the only way.
Yeah, but it's hilarious at the front desk when you say direct pay, like they start whispering and like
what?
They quietly ask for your debit card and like how you're gonna pay.
It's strange, and we hope to. I mean, I have a T-shirt right now that says just like uninsured across the front. It's like I want to own it. Like it's the same thing as saying like fiat. Like I'm out of fiat or Bitcoin. Like what I'm saying, like we are out of that insurance racket, and we are into something which is much more delightful.
Well, that's funny because it is. I mean, obviously, we've talked about this over the last year plus, but like it is such a racket. It is funny that people look at you while they're involved in the racket and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing? You're crazy."
Yeah, it's the same look though that we get as Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
For people who understand Bitcoin, oh, one of you Bitcoin people, you must be strange, right? Which is kind of like, oh, wait, you don't have insurance? That's strange. But it's just you're psyoped by the powers that be to think that this is the only way. And we know as Bitcoiners, like this is not the only way. There's a way better way, And so I think that's why Bitcoiners right now, half of our members or something like that are Bitcoiners, like are so like interested in this. Because they're like, oh yeah, I know. I kind of like I like being looked upon as being a little bit different.
I liked opting out.
I like opting out. Yeah, exactly.
It's opt out of the rackets in every aspect of your life, whether it's money, healthcare, food. Yeah. You can opt out. You just gotta go shake your doctor's hand, shake your rancher's hand.
Shake your doctor's hand. There it is.
The Bitcoin.
I would say though that we've gotten lots of feedback where doctors have treated them differently. I don't know if I said this one with you before, but I had a cardiologist who I had to go get scans for my heart, and everything's great. But he's like, hey, typically I would ask you to come back into the office so that we could go over these scans. But since you don't have insurance and you're direct pay, can I just call you? I'm like, hell yeah, you can call me. Like, and he called me and he's like, everything looks great. And I'm like, wait a second, you would have charged me $200 to come into your office for you to say everything looks great, right? Yeah. Like people are being
not only
cared
that,
for.
But like potentially like an hour plus of commute.
It's the worst thing ever, sitting in a waiting room at a doctor's office.
Yeah.
No way in hell I want to do that.
Just call me.
Yeah, call me.
Yeah.
And the only reason he said it is because he knew I didn't have health insurance.
Would he? And he'd be able to charge.
Yeah, he'd be able to charge for that follow up.
He doesn't have to charge for the phone.
No. He's just like, I'm just gonna call you and we're gonna be done with it. I'm like, great.
More of this.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. What do you think the critical tipping point is to shake people out of the psyop of health insurance? And
unfortunately, I don't know if there's are you taking a societal tipping point or an individual tipping point? Because I think for an individual, a couple things of what we're seeing is happening. One is the insurance plans continue to treat their people like crap, and people finally get to a place where like, I'm not taking this crap anymore. Like I hate my insurance company being my enemy. It just doesn't make any sense. Second is the prices are going up significantly. And so at some point it makes so much like pain. It's like the Stockholm syndrome. Like I don't understand why people continue to go through this pain and like, oh, my insurance company's, helps me out. Like this is crazy. I think eventually it's so much pain that they have to, rattle their cages. And then I think societally, I think we need to get to 30 to 50,000 people. I don't think it's big. 30 to 50,000 people in a country of 350 million is not a lot. But I think we can get 30 to 50,000. I think there's an effect here where people start talking about it and they're like, this is like legitimate, like a legitimate alternative, at least in the minds of like that early majority. Like you've got to cross the chasm to that early majority.
Let's do it this open enrollment season, freaks.
I mean, it'd be great. I mean, 50 might be a lot. We'd be operationally strapped, but I mean, I think we'll probably get to 6,000 by the end of the month. We'll probably be at 10 or something like that. I'm hoping somewhere around 10, by the beginning of next year, first quarter of next year.
Yeah.
That's a good start, right? I mean, I think I asked somebody, I think it was Eric Podwaski. Do you know him? Mm-hmm. Yeah, good dude.
Bitcoin Talk.
Yeah. Asked him like, how many Bitcoiners out there are there that actually are so down the rabbit hole that are willing to like buy stuff with Bitcoin, right? Like, where are the metrics on that? I don't know. I know El Salvador, lots, but here in the United States, like, how many of us are there that would actually like go and do it? Because it's not pressing the easy button.
I think there's more than any information we'll disclose publicly just because of the tax situation of spending Bitcoin. I do think a lot of people spend Bitcoin. They just don't want to admit it because...
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. That's why
you look at Strike. I mean, how many accounts does Strike have? Or I don't know. What are the other kind of like widely used, Bitcoin platforms, and what kind of membership do they have? And then you could probably start figuring out like what is the current Bitcoin market. And then the next question is like, how do you double, triple, quadruple that, right? As we go into a bull market, I think that helps for sure.
Yeah. That's the other thing too, thinking about like getting more people on to the CrowdHealth model and thinking about how they interact with traditional healthcare and health insurance. It's usually their employer that's providing them the options that they're opting into. So how much progress have you guys made of getting CrowdHealth as an option for employers?
Oh, for employers. Oh, man. Talk about regulatory madness.
Really?
Yeah. Anytime we can't have a direct relationship with the employer.
Okay.
Because then you're under what's called ERISA rules. I don't even know what ERISA stands for, but it's a huge bureaucracy within the Department of Labor that is, will hammer you if you touch anything close to ERISA rules. There's another, I mean, in the Biden administration has put, serious $1 million, plus fines for anybody who is not totally complying. We're not an ERISA. We're not an insurance company, so we can't be in ERISA. However, we have been able to go to employers and say, listen, instead of paying for your members' insurance, why don't you just give them cash to go and get their own health care?
It's like school choice, but for health.
Yeah.
Health insurance.
Exactly. And for a decent chunk of Bitcoin companies, we've gone to them and they've been like, okay, well, yeah, we'll do that. And especially I think now as we're going to be able to actually offer a lightning offering where it's like truly you are transacting in Bitcoin. I think next year will even be better for us because we were one step away from Bitcoin before, saving in Bitcoin and things, but now it's like, no, you're actually transacting your healthcare expenses in Bitcoin, in Lightning, right? And so I think we're gonna have a much better success, next year. Yeah. So if you're running a small Bitcoin company and trying to figure out what to do with, your members' healthcare, please call us. We'd love to work with you.
And as an employer, like if I were being an employee, I would see this as an added benefit.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to deal. I remember sitting in like boardrooms at this time of the year when I was working at like larger companies, and you'd sit down, you'd waste like half a day on going over like the healthcare options that you could opt into. And I never came out of those boardroom meetings with clarity. Like I'm just
You're still like, what the hell is this? Which one do I pick? You have to have a crystal ball to figure out like which one is going to be economically better for you.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, it's like, look, ear or a rocking ear, $500. ER visit, $500. Like it's just anything that is big. It's like you pay the first $500 and we'll submit the rest of the community. It's super easy.
Yeah. And what's the average deductible for a plan these days?
Oh man. Well, on healthcare.gov for a family of 4, my only options were like between $12,000 and $16,000.
That's insane. So that's what you pay before
first.
anybody comes in and covers any extra
And I think it was, don't quote me on this, but I think it was 19 or 20 or something like that, max out of pocket. So typically the way it works is like you have this deductible, which is you not only pay premiums every month. So for my family, it was $1,400 a month, so that's what, $16,000 or something like that in premiums. And then it was another $14,000 for my deductible. So that's $30,000 before the insurance plan pays $1. And then everything above that, I paid 20% of, up to me paying a total out of pocket for that deductible, $20,000. Right? I mean, it's like mind-boggling. Why anybody would even consider it.
Yeah, it's not really covering. I mean, anchoring to my family's health expenses, like we come nowhere near that.
No.
In a year. And so like even if we had the health insurance that we're paying for, like it's not going to help $1 to our healthcare cost over the last year.
And this is where I think that like somewhere close, nutrition, wellness, exercise, things like that has got to be taken, it has to be accounted for when somebody goes and gets their healthcare dollars, because somebody, sitting on the couch eating chocolate fudge, whatever, right? Has got to be treated differently than somebody who's working out, 4 or 5 times a week. Like it's just, it can't continue to be where people who are working out and taking care of themselves and figuring out what's going on with their body and like truly treating their body as temples, right? Can't continue to pay for people who aren't, like 77% or something like that of Americans are overweight.
That's insane.
It's like 37% are obese. I mean, it's insanity. And that's where I think that the food component, which I kind of talked about as my 3 pillars of things I'd like to challenge, is next. So there's got to be something there, So we're working through that.
What do you think we need to attack on the food side, most importantly?
Well, I mean, I think it's most importantly is, an education and understanding of what goes into your body and how it impacts like your body makeup, right? I mean, at a very fundamental level. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to take some labs and some metrics around that, right? So like, let's get everybody a set of labs and some key metrics that they understand, so that everybody understands where their metabolic health is, right? So there's 5 components of it. What are your metabolic health components? And then how does food impacts all of them, right? How can we change what we eat to impact these 5 metabolic, components? And then, basically, bonus you based on being able to get them down, or you pay less based upon you being able to get into these 5 metabolic, thresholds.
Green zones. Yeah.
Because in essence, what I want is and I've said this before, it kind of sounds cheesy, but I want everybody to be able to be, 80 years old and run around the backyard with their grandkids.
That's what I want.
And it's like, live hard, die fast.
Yeah.
Like that's what we all want. And right now we are living hard on the carbohydrates and dying slow. Slow death sucks. Like, let me die fast.
Yeah. When you say that, you mean like at the end of life?
At the end of life, like you go to sleep, you don't wake up.
Yeah.
It's not like you're just ravaged by chronic disease for, a decade or 2 decades before you die. Like that's a terrible end of life. Yeah. Like finish strong.
Yeah. And it's something I've become more acutely aware of. Obviously, and we were talking before we hit record too, like my oldest is reaching the age where he can have conversations, he's running around, and I want to continue that. Like I'm in good shape. And one thing we did over the last year is we joined Lifetime Fitness, which is great for families. Like the kids have a play area. They can go, my wife and I can go work out. And that's something that we've made like a family routine 2 or 3 times a week. I'll go 4 times a week, but 2 or 3 times out of that 4 times, the kids are in tow. We're going together. That's one small thing too. It's like at that small age, that impressionable age, just saying, "Oh, Dad's going to work out.
Yeah,
stay in shape. I get to play."
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, my vision is like, we're called CrowdHealth, but in essence, what we're doing is we're putting together little crowds of people who share some characteristics that in essence change their behaviors because I don't want to screw somebody in my own tribe. Right. So Marty and you and I are both in the Bitcoin crowd. Like if I try to extract value out of that community, I'm screwing Marty and Parker and Will and all these people who, like are part of my people. Right. Like I'm going to act different in the way that I go and consume healthcare. And so I think it's important for us to put together these little communities because this is the way we've done it for hundreds of, if not thousands of years. Right. Like we're in little tribes. We take care of each other. We don't want to screw each other because it ultimately will come back and impact us, right? But there's just an affinity for each other too. And so one of the things that I'm thinking about is like, we've got our kind of founders crowd. We have our Bitcoin crowd, and that's another crowd. Can we have like a metabolically healthy crowd or something? Like, it's like, hey, if you're metabolically healthy, you can be in this crowd. And guess what? The cost will be lower because everybody's metabolically healthy. And then everybody might be like, maybe I actually need to work on my metabolic health so I can be in this crowd, right? And so there's, I think there's probably a trainers crowd and a real estate agents crowd and a Keller Williams crowd, like, little 10 little crowds, each with 20,000 people in them. And, big enough to be able to be viable, but small enough to be like, I know that there's other people that I know in my crowd, so I'm going to change my behavior. I mean, we had a guy with colon cancer who came back to us. I may have mentioned this in your last one, but like, he's like, I don't want to I have colon cancer. Like, this is a problem. Like, help me. But I don't want to screw the community. Like, can you please find me doctors that will treat me at a reasonable cost? And I'm like, holy crap. Like, this guy is in totally a position where he could be the victim. And he is a victim of like just a raw end of the deal. He was in his mid 30s, and he's like, he took the approach of being, I don't want to screw the other people in my community. And I'm like, dang, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Like that is a change in behavior. Where if you were with health insurance, you're like, screw this, like give me everything, like I don't give a shit who I go to.
I mean, the concept's thrown out a lot in Bitcoin circles, and sometimes it's beating a dead horse and said ad nauseum, but it's very true. Like incentive alignment, incentive structure is important. The incentive structure in typical health insurance just purely doesn't exist. It's just spend more, we'll pay for whatever, we'll print money to pay for it.
Totally.
It'll be as unhealthy as you want. Where this, you align incentives between community members and it drives outcomes like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a pretty special thing to watch. So, and the other thing I was a little, without totally understanding the Bitcoin community, because I'm fairly new, I'm 3 years in, and you hear about the Bitcoin community being like this self-sovereign group, which seems a little bit from the outside looking in, not totally understanding. It was like, oh, it's all about me. But what I've learned about this is it's like, no, I'm responsible for myself and taking care of myself. And therefore I'm actually a way better member of the community. Right. And so it's actually stronger communities because I'm like, I know Marty's like taking care of his business and I want to be in community with that guy. Right. And so it actually makes stronger relationships and stronger communities because people aren't in the community like, oh, that dude's a slacker. Like this just doesn't exist, within, it's all spectrum, but like, it doesn't just a much lower probability of that in the Bitcoin community than others. Cause you're almost like, if you're the slacker, you're like, okay, you're not taking care of your business. So it's an incredible community that I've seen, which is really neat.
Yeah, no, that's the funny thing about the mischaracterization of like, oh, they're just selfish. They just want to get rich quick. And it's like, no, I want to preserve my wealth and uplift my individual situation in this world, which will then allow me to go out and help everybody else. And you can't help everybody else unless you help yourself first, whether that's taking care of your body, taking care of how you save your money, watching the food you eat.
Yeah.
You can't go out and lecture people if you're not doing it yourself.
Yeah. It's hard to be a victim within that kind of community, like, or play the victim at least. It's like you have a lot of people being like, all right, dude, like, yeah, you something's going on, like, get your shit together. Like, let's go. Like,
Extreme ownership.
Yeah. Something bad happened to you, like you get cancer, like it's yours, you own it. But guess what? We're going to be a community and we'll help you out. Like that's you just got the raw end of the stick, man. Like that sucks.
Yeah. And
so
do you think doctors are waking up to this, like the power of the community?
I think so. Man, I've had so many people, and this is a hard metric, right? Like, you have such a huge following, like you get probably hundreds of new followers or whatever a day. Like, so doesn't really impact you. But like for us, we have, I don't know, 3,000 people who follow us on Twitter. And so, if we get 20 people who, follow us today, I can still kind of look through them and see who they are. I'm seeing more MDs in the last probably 30 days than I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I think it's probably because of open enrollment, people are interested, but we are making a push out there into the medical community. And we got a lot of, docs who are following us. And I don't know, maybe they're following us to see what we're about and see, if we're trying to screw up their business, or their administrators in the hospitals who are pissed off. It doesn't seem like it. It feels like it's salt of the earth docs who are just interested in an alternative, because they've been so just ravaged by health insurance.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because we just recorded with Mike Benz, who's the executive director at the Foundation for Online Freedom, for Freedom Online. And we were talking about the censorship industrial complex and really dug deep into the intelligence apparatus, federal government apparatus that sort of embedded itself in private institutions to push censorship on the world. And one thing he said that really made me optimistic is, I was like, what is the end goal? Like, where do we go from here? And he basically said, like, what I think we're seeing is that there's going to be like a lot of defections of people who are pushing the censorship industrial complex because the severity of the immorality of what they're doing weighs on them. They begin to defect. You can easily see that happening in the healthcare industry as well, where people, the enormity of just the lack of quality service and the high cost and the corruption that comes with the incumbent health insurance and healthcare system begins to weigh on individuals, and all these systems are made up of individuals, and they just begin to defect.
I think we're seeing defections on the doctor side. You're seeing it with direct primary care. Like, that was one wave. We're probably going to see some more waves. We're seeing some things on the direct primary care being kind of imitated in some of the specialty care too. So we're seeing pediatrics. And so I think we'll start seeing more and more of those defections away from the insurance system. And so anybody who starts having insurance is going to have a much harder time finding docs, because docs are defecting to a private pay type of scenario. So a consumerization of healthcare, I think that's a great thing. I think you're going to have struggle with health insurance. Right now, I saw the wait for a neurology visit in the United States is now like 6 months.
What?
Gastro is like 3 months. What was the other one that was crazy? That was like February or March was the first opening. ENT, ear, nose, and throat was like February or March was the earliest you could get one. And so I think the shortage of docs, defection of docs, all these things are going to, I think, be the fuel, for additional consumerization. Yeah. So and defection of individuals too. Yeah. So we have a lot of people. We think it's about 25% of our people actually are opting out of their health plans, employer-based health plans, and saying, screw this, I don't want health insurance anymore. And then coming over to CrowdHealth, which is cool. Yeah. It's not Brexit. We're calling it health plan exit, right? I don't know. It's not resounding.
We'll work on that one.
We're working on it. So anyway, we're having a significant amount of people that are abandoning their health plans, which is awesome. I love it.
And it feels like similar to like the beef initiative. It feels like one of the biggest hurdles to get over is because I was in Missouri at the Bitcoin expedition a few weeks ago, and I led a panel talk with a rancher from Indiana, and he joined the beef initiative after hearing Slim. I think actually hearing the beef initiative referenced by Adam Carey on Joe Rogan, and he just went onto the website and signed up, and he said his numbers exploded just from adding his name to the site. Never met Slim.
It's awesome.
Just like heard it on Joe Rogan's podcast, put it. I think there's like a similar thing that could happen here in healthcare. It's just like the knowledge of doctors and patients understanding that this model exists just hasn't permeated to what it needs to be.
Exactly.
It's just like, how do you create a network, whether it's via CrowdHealth or beyond CrowdHealth, that enables people to know that this option exists in the first place?
Yeah. We need, everybody's looking for that Joe Rogan moment, right? Like one mention on Joe Rogan.
He's right down the street.
I know he's here in Austin. One mention on Joe Rogan can change your business. You know, so that moment's going to come as you just got to like continue to build and build and build. And we're adding, thousands of people over the next few months. We're going to get there. Like there's going to be a point where people are not looking at this as like, and the same thing's happening with Bitcoin, I think, as not like this weird alt kind of solution, but is actually the obvious solution.
Yeah. I'm pulling out my phone because I want to like back up what we're saying with some actual data here, which is somebody reached out to me over the weekend without disclosing exact names, say why they were looking for a CrowdHealth referral. Yes, they're getting charged $250 per month by Anthem next year. Like their costs are going up, and they're looking to get on a CrowdHealth. So it's
probably a pretty good deductible too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would make tons of sense for that person. Is that a single person?
A man with a family.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we would make tons of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just like their monthly bill, which goes on top of their deductible.
On top of their deductible. Deductible is probably 5 to 8 or something like that.
Yeah. So that's like,
yeah. I mean, it's
$3,000.
The economic makes tons of sense.
Yeah.
It's whether or not you can get over the hurdle of like, okay, I've been so, again, psyop thinking insurance was the only way I could do this. Like, am I willing to take that plunge? And more people like you and Safe and Jimmy and, all these people who are members of CrowdHealth being like, hey, this is working for me. Yeah. Like I think we can get that Bitcoin community, rallying around us, it would be awesome. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it. It works.
It works. I've used it. You've used it. Many people, the other thing that's crazy too is the people who are members of CrowdHealth, like, because I see on the back end who are actually members, like blow me away. Like the people who are like standing up to the tyranny of, government intervention. Like a lot of those folks that you see on Twitter that have hundreds of thousands, even millions of followers are members of CrowdHealth. I can't say who they are because that would be, anonymity. But like, I'm like, oh my God. Like I called my inside sales guy. I was like, is this who I think it is? He's like, yeah, dude, that's who you think it is. I'm like, that's awesome. And I'm like, I'm crowdfunding bills because I still see them all. And I'm like, oh, Marty, crowdfunded this person's bill today. So you could have your bill funded by Marty and Safe and, Bree Love and Natalie and like all these people who are Jimmy and all these people who are members of CrowdHealth. Like y'all are actually helping each other. Like this is not just a saying, like the money goes directly from you to them. Yeah. Right. And it's a really cool thing that we're actually helping our members directly.
Yeah. It's, it works both ways.
Yeah.
Like
totally.
I've had some of my family healthcare bills paid and I've helped others pay them as well.
Yeah. There's a special thing to know that like your money is going directly to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, on a monthly basis, hey, I'm helping a pregnancy or I'm helping, a guy with colon cancer or whatever.
Or a kid with the rock in their ear.
Or a kid with a rock in their ear. I think we described that one as an ear, nose, and throat procedure or something like that.
It was.
Yeah.
It happened at the end.
I think that was the way that it was described. I don't know if we said rock in ear, although we probably should have. That would have been funny. But yeah, it's really cool to know that your money is not going to some big organization.
Yeah.
Again, is we take $50 a month. That's the only revenue we get. It's like a subscription fee because we didn't want any of those perverse incentives that health insurance plans pay because we would ultimately, even though I feel like I've got a good heart, like the love of money is the root of all evil. Like I think if there are incentives to see something to make more money, you inevitably will take that incentive. Like It's hard not to.
Yeah.
So we wanted to build everything. It's like the incentive is not to make more money here. I mean, it's like, because we're fixed at $50 a month, right? So that's the way that we did it. Health insurance plans, like they actually are incentivized for you to be sick.
Oh, yeah.
Like people don't understand that. It's like they make more money when you're sick. Like that is crazy to me that people will still buy into that system. So, and so the incentives do motivate behavior. We as Bitcoin understand that.
And even so, like if CrowdHealth's successful and you can get a good network effect, it could be very good business.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be profitable in March of next year, which is pretty good.
Congrats.
For, being around for 2.5 years,
Yeah.
getting profitable. and we still have lots of money in the bank. So, we're in really good shape. In fact, yeah.
Well, that's Parker talks about it a lot too. That's how you know it's not bullshit. We talk about it in the context of like sustainable energy. Like nothing is sustainable unless it's profitable.
Right.
If you're reaching profitability within 3 years, like it is a sustainable business model.
Yeah. Right. We'll be profitable at somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 customers. So, if we hit our 10,000 by the beginning of the year, we'll be profitable. But 7,000 to 8,000 is where we'll hit profitability. Yeah. So, with the funding environment right now and just macro funding environment sucks. I mean, it's just totally evaporated. Yeah. We've been very safe in terms of how we spend our money. And so, we'll be profitable. Yeah, probably end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter, maybe, but somewhere in there. So it'll feel good to not, draw on cash every month.
Yeah. That's important. And it's hard. That's another thing, like a Bitcoin standard drive. So when we see it at 1031, like when your opportunity cost is like not being able to accumulate Bitcoin or revenue, like you're going to focus on getting profitable as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we've had to do. That's all startups right now. They got to figure out how to get to profitability.
Yeah. Interest rates go to 5.5%. It really pauses the train of easy money that has created this mirage over the last 2 decades.
Yeah. Yeah. So
let's get, I mean, honestly, disclaimer, CrowdHealth's a sponsor of the pod, but it is because I only like to advertise companies that I actually use. And CrowdHealth works. It's a better model. It's a better experience. Like if you're out there during this open enrollment season, you're sitting in that boardroom, they're throwing all these options at you. They're very expensive, not very straightforward or clear. I know it can seem like a big jump, but I did it with me, my whole family, and it's worked great for us. And it's a lot of peace of mind. You meet good doctors, you have conversations with CrowdHealth to help you figure out, all right, how do I navigate this discussion for this bill and stuff like that. It's just like you actually understand what you're buying in the healthcare system now, which before, with typical health insurance, you really don't.
Yeah.
You're just like given a bill, they handle it, and you don't understand anything that's going on.
I think the cool stat, and I told you this, I think it was 6 months ago where I mentioned this to you. And at that point, I'm going to get the numbers a little bit wrong, but it's going to be close. It's going to be in the ballpark. At that point, I had been on your podcast twice in like a year and a half or something. So we have had a relationship for almost 2 years. And we had signed up using your code, TFTC. I think we had signed up like 500 people at that time, 400 or 500 people, something in that range. And it was like 2 had left. Like 2 out of 500. Good retention rate. Right? Oh, and that was over a year and a half or 2 years, something in that range. I don't remember exactly what the stat was, but like you lost 2 over that period of time with 500. Like, and I think those 2 people left because their employer paid all of their health insurance or something like that. And so they're like, I just can't do it. I'm like, I can't argue with you. Like, I still think health insurance sucks and you're making a bad decision, but like, it's hard to make, the economic thing. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah. Pretty darn good.
So I guess what's that saying is like, people who've come have enjoyed it, and they feel like they are a part of something bigger, and so that's great. And go to look at our Trustpilot reviews. Like these are all verified by Trustpilot. We have like 122 reviews and 3 suck. So out of the 122, I can go into each one of those 3, and it's like how we didn't really screw that up. It's more like we had a pain in the butt, member. But 3 out of 122 is not bad.
It's less than 3%.
Less than 3%.
That's an A+.
That's an A+. I'll take a 97 on a test any day. And a lot of times you go to those reviews, and if you see them like all, like 5s, you're like, something's going on here. But we have like 2 1s and a 2 or something like that. It's like, okay, well, we're not perfect. Yeah. So come and join us, man. If you guys are out there, we'd love for you to join us.
And I mean, again, this is don't trust, verify. Andy's in here every day grinding on calls. Yeah. I've seen it. It's not somebody. That's the thing again with this healthcare model. They're like, what's going on? Like it's just a scam. They're just taking your money, not doing anything. Andy's in here every day working a full day, putting in the work, talking to people. You started your own podcast since last time you were on. How's that going, by the way?
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. We've had some interesting characters on.
We had Dr. Malone on recently.
We had Dr. Malone. It's gonna be released next Monday.
Okay.
And we had a really good chat. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this to you. Like, we stayed out of like the vaccine thing. Like, I feel like everybody's talked to him about the vaccines.
Yeah.
Like, the thing we talked about, which I thought was interesting, was, he had a decision point where he knew something that if he were to go public with it, it was going to change his life and probably not for the better. Like, he was going to take some heat, or do you stay on the path in which you can kind of just keep making great money? He had a great consulting business, like stay on that comfortable path. So when you get to that fork, like, how do you make the decision? And so we talked a lot about that moment in time where he had to make a decision. And I think a lot of us, especially in the Bitcoin community, like, we get to those forks and we're like, man, I can press the easy button here, or I can take the harder road. It's like, okay, what do we want our lives to look like?
Yeah.
The harder road life or the easy road life?
It's funny you say that, because we're going to have a lot of those decision trees coming in our future in Bitcoin. And I worry that a lot of people are going to hit the easy button. Not going to be easy.
Yeah.
Hit the hard button. It's going to be worth it, because particularly as it pertains to Bitcoin, when it comes to overarching regulation and KYC AML compliance, there's going to be a lot of people that hit the easy button, but that could really lead us down a terrible path.
Yeah.
Hit the hard button. It's going to be worth it in the long run.
It's this high time preference versus low time preference, like, view of the world. Right. Yeah. And I think this kind of goes back to the doctor conversation that we had too. Like, I think Bitcoins are low time preference people generally. Bitcoin doctors will take the low time preference, which I think we want to. In a high time preference doctor is take meds now, it'll get rid of your symptoms, but I'm not going to deal with the underlying issue. Mm-hmm. The low time preference doctor will say, no, we need to figure out the issue. And you may have symptoms for a little bit longer, but we're not going to get rid of those symptoms, because that's actually the body, like, doing what it needs to do to take care of itself. Right. Like, and so I think the same thing applies with some of these decisions. Like, we have a high time preference society, and we have to hit the hard button over and over and over and over again to be able to, I think, survive and to thrive over a long period of time by hitting the hard button. Like, we got to hit the hard button, and so parenting, a lot of times we have to hit the hard button, right? Bitcoin, our monetary policy, we got to hit the hard button. Like, it's going to be painful for a period of time, but we got to hit the hard button. So I love Bitcoiners, because you got to hit the hard button. You can go to your employer tomorrow and sign the little sheet of paper and get a little insurance card and go to the doctor and lay down an insurance card and then not have to worry about it until the explanation of benefits shows up. That's the easy button. Like, pick the hard button and do something a little bit different. Learn a little bit of something about the healthcare system works. Learn why insurance sucks, and it's really, incentives are totally perverse. Like, that's the hard button, And so it's like, we should start a podcast, the hard button. Like, what are all the things in life in which, if we press the hard button, we would thrive, way easier? Am I going to go have my kids, Skittles from Halloween tonight? That's easy button, right? Am I going to, have something actually really good for me? Hard button, although it's good steak, which I think is on the plate tonight, it's going to be an easy button, and it's still good for me. So
we're having chicken fajitas tonight. We had steak last night. It was delicious. No, but again, like, even hitting the hard button and going the extra step to learn about CrowdHealth and understand the model, it's reaching parity in terms of convenience with the insurance model.
Yeah, and we'll be beyond parity. We'll be 10x better.
Yeah.
At the end of this year.
Yeah.
With the Lightning will be awesome. It might be a little bit funky in the beginning, and I think Bitcoiners okay with it, understanding that, like, Lightning can be a little bit funky, and so they'll understand it. They'll be, hopefully, give us a little bit of grace, but it'll still, the fundamentals will work like they have for the last almost 3 years.
Yeah.
So stick with it. Give us some grace. We're working with Breeze on the wallet.
Hell yeah.
So they're kind of the back end tech. We're using their SDK, so we didn't have to do any of that. Everybody, it feels like within the community, they're highly regarded in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, that SDK is one of the most robust, and they've been working on that for a while.
Yeah. And they got some really cool stuff going on in the back end that allows some of the payment processing things to work really, really nicely. Yeah. So, and we're making, strides in Lightning too. So, I think as that happens, as we mature a little bit more, it's going to be 10x better than health insurance, just in terms of like the payment system.
Yeah.
You know, so it'll get better.
We're going to win, freaks.
We're going to win.
Because of people like you, Andy, hitting the hard button, doing the things to bring these better models to the market. It's extremely important. Thank you. I'm an extremely happy customer. Member.
Appreciate it.
Community member. Extremely happy community member.
Thanks for your support. Thanks for all those folks out there on the Bitcoin world that have supported us. Yeah, just super appreciate it. And let's win.
It's open enrollment. You have a decision to make over the next few months. Hit the hard button.
TFTC, you get $99 for 6 months. It's pretty damn good. And you're automatically enrolled in the Bitcoin community. So the Bitcoin crowd. Do it.
Join crowdhealth.com/TFTC. Mid-roll. We call that a mid-roll in the in the industry. Andy, I'll probably see you tomorrow in the office.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, brother.
Peace and love, freaks. Tiki!